Welcome to my presentation on programming acceleration for sprinters using the Verkhoshansky approach. So in looking at Verkhoshansky's approach to programming acceleration, the aim of this presentation is to see how applicable this is for the trained sprint athlete. Some of the key highlights that we'll draw out from will be around duration and the frequency of the program, the specific volumes and intensities and recoveries that are applied by Verkhoshansky and how these are applicable to the sprinter, and as well as that, the specific exercises that are selected. So Verkhoshansky uses a very short and intense periods to really focus on starting acceleration, and we can see the duration was 6 weeks, frequency 2 sessions a week for a total of 12 sessions. And this does reflect the way in which sprinters train. Sprinters do periodize their year into focusing on max strength, rate of force development, and power for acceleration, and they also focus on max strength, rate of force development, and power for max velocity. And so we can see if they're going to have lots of different training units throughout the year, we want to really try and periodize these so that we have specific blocks for each of the qualities that we're developing for the two different phases of the sprint. So you can see here it's really important to plan out the training quite specifically for sprinters to ensure that they are not overtraining or managing fatigue by ensuring that the training load is balanced out. So obviously with acceleration for sprinters, it's going to make up a core part of their training that they're going to be focusing on all year round, and they need a good exposure to different modalities that develop acceleration. Is this program enough exposure for that particular for quality? And we need to be now looking now at what Verkhoshansky states is that this program is particularly for perfecting starting acceleration. So we're looking at perfecting or developing the quality in the first 4 steps. All right, so we know sprinters accelerate for up to 50-60 meters. This is more focusing on the very start, so the first 4 steps, where a lot of the most amount of changes are taking place in these first 4 steps. The ground contact time is reducing big time from first step through to the 4th step. A lot of the forces changes are taking place in those first 4 steps. A lot of the angular displacements are changing big time in those first 4 steps. Okay, so the smaller duration and frequency program that Verkhoshansky offers may well support that particular focusing on that particular quality. Some extra considerations from statistics here is that we have to consider that extra modalities are being deployed by sprinters beyond just their weight room training. So they're also doing other qualities on the track to develop acceleration, and as well as that, they have to focus as well on doing the majority of their training at high intensity, short duration, with full recovery. So this particular program may well allow to support that too. So in terms of the volume now in this program, we have obviously 12 sessions throughout the program, but in each of these sessions, only a maximum of 1 to 3 exercises are programmed in each of the sessions. This goes back to the point I was making earlier about how sprinters need very intense focus and a very specific focus on what they're doing in the weight room, just like they do on the track. In certain periods, what they're doing is they have high volume of specific exercises with full recovery and a very intense application to each of these exercises. So not many exercises, but what we are doing is focusing heavily on those low number of exercises that we're doing. So we know as well, obviously, acceleration is a very technical skill, and so all the exercises we're doing on the track, we want to be very specific in those exercises. We're replicating that in the gym, allowing for that technical proficiency. In terms of the volume then of the sets and reps of those low number of exercises, that's a high, moderate to high volume. Again, so we're looking at the squats 1 by 12, 1 by 10, 1 by 7, 1 by 5 repeated twice. That high repetition, that high volume allows for that technical mastery and can create an overload, as we can see from Baker. The study by Kramer as well shows us that trained athletes can benefit from multiple sets of lower limb max strength exercises. It's just that for sprinters, we want to have a multiple sets of just a few different exercises. A maximum of 3 can be beneficial so that we're not overloading too much. So again, a high volume focus on a low number of exercises will allow for more specificity and technical mastery. Looking at intensity now, well, we know that we want to optimize the force velocity profile of the athlete. So particularly relevant for sprinters who need to adopt a range of different loads to tackle both force and velocity. And so if we look at Verkhoshansky's program, it emphasizes that heavy load with heavy squats 90%, and we have moderate loaded jumps at 50 to 60%. That's going to tackle both the force and the velocity. But there are obviously recommendations to really optimize the load so that it doesn't affect the exercise kinematically. So we know if we're sled towing with very high loads, it's going to impact on that kinematic similarity with acceleration pattern. It's going to change the way you produce force if you have loaded it too much. So if we look at loaded jumps that in Verkhoshansky's program could be adapted so that perhaps lower than 50 to 60%, we bring it down to 20 or 30% even, and we really emphasize that velocity component, and we make it more kinematically similar to acceleration. If we look at work from Hicks, they've taken the squat jump and turned it into an assisted horizontal squat jump. So it's allowed them to really emphasize the velocity component of a slow stretch shortening cycle exercise. We want a exercise like squat jump in the program because we know it's we're getting a lot of good benefits from that force and extension that you can get with a squat jump. But how can we turn it into a fast stretch shortening cycle exercise? I think Hicks have done a good job there in being able to do that, to really emphasize the velocity component, because we know acceleration uses the fast stretch shortening cycle, not to the same degree as the max velocity phase, but if we can use the squat jump and turn it into a velocity based exercise, that's going to be really beneficial. So Verkhoshansky's program could benefit from that sort of intuitive exercises like that. And again, since this is a program that clearly emphasizes starting acceleration, we know that in those first 4 steps, the ability to orient your force is critical to achieve that forward 45-degree angle. There's been a lot of work coming out in the last few years about the technical ability to orient your force. Well, actually, we need to be looking now at maximizing the magnitude of the leg extension force that you can produce to enable you to achieve that 45-degree angle. That essentially is what's going to help athletes to achieve that angle. We know from Newton's laws that we need to be balancing out those rotational torques to overcome vertical component and have enough left over for the horizontal component. That leg extension force is going to enable you to achieve that. In that regard, then, Verkhoshansky's program can be very beneficial for athletes in that regard. So if we have a short period where we really hammer that heavy squats in addition to other velocity orientated exercises, that's going to emphasize the athlete's ability to be able to achieve that 45-degree angle, because they'll have that leg extension capacity available to them. What could be critical about it would be perhaps what we could do to add to it, add kinematically similar exercises such as horizontal type exercises that also train high force, because obviously the squat is in a vertical direction. If we have more horizontal type exercises, that's going to be beneficial too. Now, another positive for Verkhoshansky's program is the use of the full recoveries that are allowed between all the sets in the series, from 4 minutes up to 10 minutes in between. And that really allows for that high focus on high volume and intensity. Um, and it's very much comparable to the way in which sprinters train on the track. We have example here of a session laid out by Nick Cooper. Um, they very much have to have a high intensity, uh, lots of reps, but to do that you need full recovery. If we're doing that in the weight room too, it's going to be more specific to the way in which sprinters adapt. So the program employs a range of different exercises incorporating squats and various different jump and explosive exercises, which will go a long way to improving max force, explosivity, reactive strength. Um, Certainly beneficial for that required leg extension force, and concentric strength that's needed in acceleration. But if we're being critical, we want to be looking at the fact that these exercises are only just in the vertical direction and they're mostly bilateral. Um, so if we're being critical, we want to look at exercises that cover both the horizontal and the vertical direction, with the exception of the stadium jumps. There are all the exercises are in the vertical direction. If we look at um, different exercises by West and Hicks, we have different exercises that are effective to that end, like medicine ball drive throw, single leg long jump, high load, sled toe. So, in summary, sprinters do require a periodized block that places a heavy emphasis on particular qualities. And so, in this case, we're looking at improving the first four steps of acceleration. At initial starting acceleration, Verkhoshansky's program is the length and the frequency is well set up to accomplish that effectively, in that it's considerate of other priorities that sprinters do need to focus on, other non-weight room modalities, stuff that they're doing on the track. And when they do focus on certain qualities in the weight room, they're applying high intensity, um, with long recoveries, and this program is very supportive of that. So higher volumes and intensities of reps and sets, long recoveries that allow for technical proficiency, uh, just like we would on the track during acceleration activities, and maximal efforts. The heavy max force emphasis in this program is particularly beneficial to those athletes who do need to improve their ability to maintain a forward lean, particularly as they progress at higher intensities. The heavy squat emphasis on this program will certainly allow athletes to accomplish that. What this program certainly could benefit from would be improving, having horizontal based exercises that improve rate of force development and maximum strength, that's a little bit more applicable to an acceleration pattern.